27, 2025. Welcome to the Global Defense War Monthly panel. My name is John Michael Chambers. We will cover from a military perspective just what is going on behind the scenes. Our esteemed panel today consists of 4 wartime correspondents. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi from Australian Army Special Forces, retired Colonel Delta Forces Chuck Sellers, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, Michael Jaco, retired veteran dedicated a total of 35 years serving the U.S. government in high-risk environments, and Derek Johnson, who's always on the panel, had family commitments today, but he will be joining us next month. Thank you, Derek, for coming back. This is a panel of experts with military and intelligence careers, having served their nations, some with combat experience as well, to cut through the noise to help keep us informed through their analysis of what is going on in this war and where things are heading. So thank you again, gentlemen, for your service to your country and continued service as civilians. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. All right, we're going to have the same sort. Oh, and let me make an announcement to the audience. I know you're used to seeing high quality studio production from JMC Broadcasting, from me and my team. There was a death in the family for my producer that I woke up to that message very early this morning when we launched this, and my backup producers were unavailable. So the show goes on. We're at war. We're going to get the content out there to you. So I apologize for the lack of production, but content is king, and here we go. These are the 3 subjects to our audience I'm speaking right now that we're going to take on in this episode, so you know where we're heading. And any other issues our panel would like to bring up, we can certainly bring up. But we're going to talk about today President Donald Trump's deployment of the National Guard across America. We're going to discuss a second subject, a world without war. And we're going to discuss the global financial reset and the dismantling of the Federal Reserve and IRS. And in those 3 topics, as our panel well knows, there's a lot of data that goes far beyond the surface of what Fox News is telling us. And that's where we intend to go here with our esteemed panel. So let me just jump into this. President Donald J. Trump, Commander-in-Chief, has now authorized the deployment of the National Guard, as I understand, to 19 cities in America. And as Derek Johnson, one of our esteemed guest on this panel typically, has been telling us for years now via executive order that the National Guard had been federalized. For what? For such a time as this. Trust the plan? You bet. So on the surface, we see and get the benefit of cleaning up the crime and homelessness. We understand that benefit for sure. And President Trump made an example of that in Washington, D.C., and will continue to comb through the messes that are in this country. But what else is really going on here? Is it just a cleanup of crime and homeless? I venture to say not. Let's take on this most critically important subject in this unprecedented, paradigm-shifting moment in American history with our panel, beginning with retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, speaking to the oppressor that President Trump gave and the actions that are now being deployed since that, which is the cleanup of 19 estimated cities with the National Guard on the street. What's really going on here beyond that? At the same time, I'll mention, while we're doing this, the Commander-in-Chief, we're also deploying, exporting, if you will, all the illegal aliens by the plane load. So there's a lot going on here. It's fascinating. It's interesting. Lieutenant Ricardo Bossi, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, please make some sense of this for our audience. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for having me. This is a very exciting time in the whole operation. And as usual, I'd like to take you like the 40,000-foot view. I'm going to take the galactic view of this, in the sense that let's look at the planet as a whole, and then the US as a microcosm as that, and then our countries even smaller than that. What we're seeing here is the change from limited game theory to unlimited game theory. Now, what do I mean by that? The limited game theory refers to, say, a football match or a chess game. You have limited players. You have a defined set of rules according to that both players agree to play. You have limited time. And what we've been trained to do by television, by sport, and everything else, to believe that we live in a world of limited game theory. Now, a quick one-liner on game theory. short version is this, and I'll use my analogy of the 5 crime families of New York. If anyone tries to win, everybody's position is suboptimal. So you've got the 5 crime families, and if they agree to play within their rules, they reach a state of equilibrium. Nobody's position is optimized, but they're doing the best they can. Now, the moment one family tries to win, take out all the other families, the equilibrium is destabilized, and you go through a period of massive chaos, and everybody's position is now suboptimal. Even that crime family that wants to take the lead will find that their position is worse than it was before. So this is the Nash equilibrium. The Nash was the mathematician that came up with the idea of game theory. And so what real life is unlimited game theory, not limited. Limited with is a football match. It's a game of chess. And that's what we've been conditioned to expect. We're the Democrats with the Republicans, with the Liberals with the Labor, whatever it might be. There's only 2 sides to the war, and there's a set of rules that everybody's playing by. And so we as citizens of or sovereign individuals of our nations have been bred, have been trained to listen to approach this whole world as a on-off, 2-sided world according to a set of rules. And yet we, silly schmucks, will sit here and go, well, there you go. It's we're playing by the rules, but the other side don't seem to be playing by the rules. It doesn't make sense. We're constantly losing. We're constantly losing because we have a wrong view of it. We've got this limited game theory. The reality is, and this is life, and there's a philosophical underpinning to it, but life is unlimited game theory. There are unlimited number of players. It is infinite in time. There is no end state. There's no finish of the game. It just goes on and on and on. And so we've been locking ourselves into this limited game theory view of the world, which guarantees failure on our part. And there's a reason. I'm talking directly about what DJT is doing with the National Guard and federalizing them. So to the United States specifically, all Donald Trump is doing exactly the way the United States was established by the founding fathers. But the cabal, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, have so gripped up all the players that they have created this binary world. And now the DJT is federalizing the National Guard and taking federal action in a United States of separate colonies that became their own states, that became part of the United States. He is now taking that action which he is authorized to do because the states haven't taken the steps that they were authorized to do because they were shut down by cabal, and the people have ceased to take the steps that they should have taken because they're shut down by the cabal. So it's been this progressive war. Now, why are we here right now? What's happened is this. Up until now, the cabal has been operating in I guess, they haven't tried to win. They've been moving slowly into the position of we want to win this war, and they've been taking smaller steps. But now they've actually lunged for the brass ring. They wanted to kill 6.5 billion of us. They wanted to have 500 million left. And they thought when they reached that stage of we are kings of the world and we're going to control this whole world, that's where the system will now fail. Their position is suboptimal, and it will continue to be suboptimal. That's the nature of life. Now, let me just get a little bit philosophical, and I have to because it'll help everyone see what is happening with greater clarity. And when you understand it, you don't say it doesn't make sense. If any of us look at a situation and say this isn't making sense, it's because our picture, our context, the prism through which we're viewing it is incomplete. That's the only reason it doesn't make sense. Now, let's get a little bit philosophical very quickly. People always say there's no darkness without light. There's no darkness without light. There's no light without darkness. But they usually do it in a negative sense. Why do bad things happen? If God was good, there'd be rainbow and sunshines and unicorns. No, the nature of life is there is both. There is darkness, there is light. So if darkness tries to win the game and exclude the light, it will just unbalance. It will lose its equilibrium because these two parts cannot exist without each other. If the good guys try to win and get rid of all, forever and a day, get rid of all of the evil in the world, never going to happen because one cannot exist with the other. We have to learn to live within this this world of good and evil, but comfortably, not rail, like I used to do as a younger guy, I suppose. Why don't they just lock these bastards up and life would be happy? No, it'll never happen. Because the moment you try to win, you set the conditions for everybody to lose. This is the Nash equilibrium. This is game theory. And so all we're now doing is we're sliding out because the cabal has gone for the brass ring, as I said. They want to win. What naturally happens is, and this is just life on Earth and life in the universe, I guess, that the light comes up. You cannot extinguish all the light from the planet, even if you are Satan himself. Sorry, mate, but that doesn't work that way. You're messed up. Similarly, if we try to think that we can shape the world in the image of whichever God we like, that's not how it works. So this equilibrium, this game theory, we were convinced, just to recap, we were convinced that we were fighting this limited war, like a game of chess, like a game of football. There's a set time, set number of players. The moment you try to exclude that, more players come up. And that's why we're here. For example, you couldn't squash us, because even if you squashed us, somebody else would come up. I remember my father once said, it's amazing. You try to grow grass in the back garden and you get three pathetic little blades coming through and it never quite works. But you throw down a ton of bricks and the grass is going to come through the bricks, the cracks in the bricks. It happens every time. This is a law of the universe. This is one of God's laws. It just is the way it is. And so what we're seeing with the federalization, and I know this is philosophical, but it makes it easy to understand what's going on. Trump is just doing what he's allowed to do. But no president has done what he's allowed to do because they've been shut down from almost the very beginning. Like in Australia, a fascinating parallel. We had our Constitution 1901, and before it was even enacted, it was undermined from the very, very, very beginning of our short history as a nation state. So all we're seeing is exactly the way the US was intended to be run. Now, it seems shocking and unusual and terrifying for people. That's because they've never lived in the United States as it was designed. They've been living in this distorted, bent, controlled United States, and 10 out of 10 to the United States people, because you have fought through, despite this oppressive evil that has been pushed upon you. You fought through. The light has to come through. Doesn't matter how much dark there is, because you can't have one without the other. And because in this last phase where they wanted to finally execute their final plan, the final phase of their final operation, it was never going to work. And that's why. That's the nature of life on Earth, light and dark, good and evil. You got to learn to live with it. And so back to the analogy of the five families. So what happens is you get an equilibrium. We've got all the players, and they agree to play the rules, and new people come in, and they are either exterminated or they are accommodated. But the equilibrium has to be established and maintained in the view of an unlimited approach to game theory. And once you get that, it's fantastic. It makes sense. So there's nothing concerning about what DJT is doing, except for the fact that people have never seen it before, except for the fact that states haven't done their job, and except for the fact that people, since the War of Independence, have banded together and said, we're going to take control. All law derives from us. We are sovereigns. Our government works for us. They're like the plumbers that turn up and fix the pipes, and when they don't do the job, you sack them and you get some new people in. They're finally seeing it. And so this is a very exciting moment in the whole plan. One last point before I stop, because this war's had many moving parts, and we'll talk about a world without war. Well, let's define war. The multifaceted warfare. People have been saying it's a psyop. No, the psyop is their psychological operations. That's just a technique that's applied, like the kinetic aspect, like all the other aspects that are woven into this thing. And so this. If anyone's waiting for a signal that we're near the end, this is without a doubt it. The visible part is DJT federalizing the National Guards and doing what he is authorized to do. And thanks to Derek Johnson and clarifying for all of us, there's two chains of command here. There's one, the commander-in-chief, the other is president of the United States, but the commander-in-chief takes precedence. Why? Because that existed before the Constitution and before the nation actually had any shape or form. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing is a transition it's almost like a transition back to what is intended by the founding fathers, and people should be over the moon. Actually, I will make one last point, and we can expand on it later, because this still relates to game theory. Let's say when all this is done, people are terrified of someone claiming to be king of the world, and peace and goodwill to all men will descend upon us. And Plato's Republic, where the philosopher king takes over and rules the people in a benevolent way. Not going to happen, can't happen. And the white hats know this. That's why DJT and others, when they're talking about, not in the mainstream, but it's certainly at the level we've been chatting, DJT is keen that every nation is a sovereign nation pursuing its individual needs. They do not want the world and all the nations of the world to be under the United States in a subordinate manner, simply because they will be establishing the conditions for another disequilibrium. Once again, getting back to it, when every player around the table pursues their own objectives, and now think of the nation states of the world. Like in Australia, I can guarantee you this. I mean, I love the United States, and we'll be through thick and thin with you, but I'm going to be a thorn in your side because I've got different views of how we want to run Oz. But that's necessary to establish this equilibrium where we all have our own objectives, we pursue our own best interests, but then we agree that it's going to be a suboptimal situation. None of us are going to push it to the point where we want everything. We're taking the whole thing. No, because that's when the disequilibrium kicks in and then we fall into chaos. So this should, I only say that to calm those around the world that are watching the US and hearing statements like, well, you'll be under the US like the states of the United States are under the federal government. That's terrifying a lot of people. But it won't take that shape. It can't, because that will set the preconditions for another collapse. DJT and the White Hats want sovereign nation states to pursue their selfish best interests and then to work cooperatively, without a doubt, under an umbrella, but to work cooperatively according to a set of rules, which will be suboptimal, but a whole lot better than constantly going to war. So I'm sorry if that took a bit longer than you might have expected, but I thought it was important for this stage of the op for people to get that idea of what game theory and how it applies to where we are now, and more importantly, how it predicts a future, which I think Trump's called the golden age. And we might want to talk about Hamilton's, your founding father Hamilton's talk. He actually mentions the golden age in Federalist number 6,
Wow.
telling us we're not ready for perfect wisdom and virtue. So please don't expect rainbows and unicorns and happiness. No, we're going to have to work at this. The golden age will be brilliant, but let's not be naive about it. We are still very incomplete as beings. We make mistakes. We have imperfect knowledge, but the structure has to be so that we have the best opportunity to advance global history, the global development, even with all the problems we've got out there with other nations that have nothing in common with us, philosophically, morally, culturally, but at least we can advance in a way that we won't descend into this level of chaos and destruction ever again.
Well, thank you very much for educating us and bringing all that game theory to the surface. I took a few notes and we'll go around to the panel. And I just want to comment back real quick. Obviously, to our audience, I'm talking here, the president is acting legally, lawfully, and constitutionally, which Ricardo has mentioned. And we want to put that on the record for certain. Second, he's not a dictator, as the left narrative is saying, and even some weaklings on our side. I would also want to comment back. You mentioned, Ricardo, about nations being sovereign in their own right, if you will. And that's exactly what the president said in 2016 UN speech, as you recall. If you saw that, he said, I'm going to make America great again and do this, that, and that for my country. And you should do the same for yours. And you brought that point up as well. So we're going to thank you. And one last thing, Ricardo, if you can, I'm only speculating. If you have speakers in your studio, maybe turn them down, because there was a little bit of back pain, even on mine. Maybe that's not the situation. But anyway, thank you. We heard you very, very clearly, just the same. The same question to the panel. Again, just to rephrase it a bit, we're discussing President Trump's deployment of the National Guard under I don't want to say the guise, because we are cleaning up the crime, and that is very important. And we are cleaning up the homelessness and not just kicking them out. I mean, this is very, very good stuff. But there's a whole lot more going on here with the deployment of the National Guard and plane loads of people being thrown back out of the country that are here illegally. How do you see this? What would be your contribution to that dialogue? Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, sir, thank you. Please share your views.
Well, I live right outside of DC, about 10 miles. I haven't been to DC in 10 years. Used to work downtown, but I haven't been there in 10 years. The reason is Trump's comment about crime. I had a guy working for me for a while, and we were working downtown, and he said, "Don't send me to that free fire zone," because that's what DC was known as. Um, I believe that we are going after the tunnels under the Capitol, under the White House, under all of the government buildings that run the children and run those items, in addition to cleaning up the crime in DC and cleaning up the homeless. They've done a phenomenal job on cleaning up the crime. No murders in 2 weeks. That's a miracle in DC. But I believe that we're going underground. I believe the reason he's going to Chicago next is Chicago is crime ridden, and there's a lot underneath the ground, to include probably some submarine bases that are tied to child trafficking. Because if you look at the Great Lakes, they're pretty big. So when we look at this, we have to understand that it's not just about cleaning up the crime in the streets and the homeless, but it's also about going underground and getting those dumbs out. I also see that we're playing a game of five-sided chess. That is, Trump has a five-sided chessboard that he's playing this whole thing globally on. And this is one of the five sides as the Republic. And he's stated it, that the Republic is here now and we're not under the corporation. And now we're cleaning up the corporation. And Chicago's next, New York, Los Angeles, and a whole bunch of other places. But they say, and I saw a map earlier today, that the places that he's talking about cleaning up also happen to be where the most tunnels and dumbs are, what they call the underground bases. So when we look at this, yes, it's great that this National Guard's on the surface, but it's also important to understand that the U.S. Army is under the ground, and the reserves are also on active status, have been for years. They were all called up. So we're looking at a major final attack on the children and saving the children.
Wow, thank you for bringing that to our attention. So it's not just the National Guard, is what you're saying, and you got the reserves and the U.S. military to some extent, and it is addressing issues above and below, and that's very, very important. We take the same question to the rest of the panel. Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Sellers, how would you like to weigh in on all this as well?
Oh, I agree with what Tom said. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what Tom said. I think I might have seen the same maps that you looked at today, Tom, and because I was looking at them at the same thing. They're talking about sending to the 19 cities in these different states, and if you overlap the 19 cities over the DUMS maps that Tom's talking about, the nodes coincide. And and I think it is about the child trafficking and all of that stuff. What I really liked was the way this thing unfolded in DC. I think this is a campaign plan that's been written quite a while ago, because it's unfolding right down the lines of a campaign plan that you would do in a theater of operations in a wartime scenario, except this one is happening here.
Yeah.
But it's just as methodical. It looks like it's just as well planned out as any other campaign plan, that I've been involved with, outside of the country and the war zones and this and that. I think it's awesome. And you that was a really smooth deployment of 2,300 troops into DC to do this. Not only that, just the fact of how they interacted and are interacting with law enforcement and federal agencies there. I mean, it's a pretty smooth operation that's going on. And like I think you said it, Tom. Today was the first murder in DC that happened this morning, early morning, in 13 days. That's like that does not happen, and so I think it is having an effect. And I'll tell you, the effect is presence of authority
Yes.
in all of these subdivisions and all of these neighborhoods. You have presence of authority that calm things down. And the other thing I was looking at today, everybody's up in arms about the fact that they're armed and this and some of them are carrying rifles, some of them are carrying pistols, but good portion of the troops that are walking the streets in DC right now are armed. And guess what? They're going to be armed in Chicago when they go there, and they're going to be armed in the next city that they go there. And none of that is illegal, because people say, oh, well, what about posse comitatus and all that stuff? Well, that's why I say I think this has been thought out for quite a while, and I look at it as a campaign plan. He put the troops in under Title 32, not Title 10. So they're under Title 32, Section 502F, which does not require waiver of posse comitatus. Brilliant. That's friggin' brilliant. So, and that's why I keep thinking the more it unfolds, the more it looks like a really, really well thought out campaign plan that's being handled in phases. And I believe that Chicago is going to be the next phase as it comes. And that's why the people that are running Chicago are bitching so loud right now about the fact that we don't need your help and all this stuff. Well, you know what? Last year in Chicago, 573 murders. Does that sound like a city in the United States? In this republic? That sounds like something in whatever third world place you want to pick. But it's just ridiculous. And so when you hear these lawmakers that are in Chicago bitching about this stuff, you just have to shake your head and go, Lord have mercy. And that's why I think that this whole thing was thought out. It's a campaign plan. They know who the bad players are going to be on the other side, and I think they have plans for handling all of this stuff. I'm kind of impressed with it, actually.
Well, thank you. Great analysis. And I took a few notes again, just a brief feedback. If you can, I don't know if you have the capability to do this, but can you elaborate on what Title 32 is?
All I know is that you have most of the time, ever since the 1800s, whatever, posse comitatus is involved. So if you have, it's basically you can't have armed troops on the ground to enforce law under those rules. So he didn't use that rule. This is another one that it talks about. I think I haven't really looked at Title 32 in detail since I read this today, but I believe it addresses use of and how you can use National Guard to assist law enforcement in the country.
Gotcha.
Which totally makes sense, and that's exactly what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, and you're right. And I saw the panel nodding when you were talking about how perfectly executed and successfully executed this plan was, that this didn't come up with this 2 weeks ago. This has been a long time in the making. I mean, if you think back to when the executive order happened to federalize the National Guard, the plan of the deployment we see probably happened back then. This is speculation.
I was going to mention that, John. I totally agree with that. When you think back on it, when he nationalized the Guard, I mean, he nationalized hundreds of thousands of guys. Well, that was not just by an accident. And that's why I'm saying that when all that happened, that was all part of the campaign plan. And now we're just executing the plan. And these units have probably been doing their planning for what their phases, what their parts in each phase are going to be for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm. Two quick comments, and we'll go on to Michael Jaco. based on what you reported here, there's reports that are out there, people can find them quite easily, that the residents in Washington have come out almost like applauding their community is finally safe. I've seen videos of people walking down clean streets and going, wow, would you look at this? I mean, that's real life. That's real living. These are real people. That's America, and that's good news. And you mentioned the lawmakers all up in a tiff and all pissed off over there in Chicago. Well, let them be exposed and let others that be exposed. I mean,
Exactly.
no murders. You got a problem with that? Streets clean, directing the homeless somewhere. You got a problem with that? Let them have it. We're getting a lot of value out of this deployment. Now I'm wondering if it'll be as smooth as it's been in DC, in the other cities as we get there. I'm going to say from one side, I'm going to say maybe yes, because we're going to get better and better at it, but maybe not. There could be some surprises thrown our way. But let's take this question over to Michael Jaco. You know the subject, Mike. If you want to take that on now, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, all of us have had that intuitive hit on certain things. It's something you develop in combat and so forth. You understand things before they happen. A lot of times, that's what I've been able to tap into on a deep level. People were asking me over 5 years ago, "Do you see a civil war?" And I said, "No, I don't see a civil war, but I do see several cities that will be in extreme violence." Now, if you look at the border, we basically have sealed the border. We've stopped anything from coming in there. I think that we're going to get involved down south. That's part of this. Stopping more immigrants, illegal immigrants or terrorists from coming across the border, and helping in these big cities. A city like Chicago, the mayor has already said that he wants everybody to rise up against the people coming to help and save them. So we're probably going to see this thing get a little bit more exciting as we move forward, and it'll probably continue to build on that. But I always thought this would be a reactive type of situation where we would start to see violence in the big cities as they moved into the big cities and started to hold. And this is where we're going to fight. We're going to fight in the big cities. It's where we have all our people, our terrorists that we brought in, our legal immigrants are going to fight for us. Which is good because we're getting rid of a lot of them. So I think we're getting rid of a lot of the fighters. That's magnificent. But I do see there's probably going to be some violence in there, but reactive. I thought we were going to be reactive. So this is very exciting for me to see, President Trump taking going in there and stopping it before it starts at all. And that's what he's done in DC. He's claimed DC, put up a couple flags on each side of the White House. He brought in the troops for the 250th anniversary. Had a bunch of troops, say their allegiance to the United States, swear in. It was magnificent. All the tanks running down the streets. He's basically a show of force. And now he has the troops that are coming in. So he's proactive instead of reactive. This basically is shutting down a lot of problems that would have come. And Tom did a really good job talking about underground warfare that's been going on for many years in every country. Australia had a lot of underground, tunnels that were taken out. So it's happening everywhere. I think it's going to be very exciting. Like I said, in some of these cities, Chicago will be the first test. If they get a little bit violent, then just like we saw in LA, which was a test case. We sent the National Guard in. We sent the Marines in because ICE needed some help. We sent the National Guard to protect them, and then we sent the Marines in to protect the National Guard. So, fortunately, it didn't get violent. I'm very surprised. So this proactive, phase that we're going through right now is really shutting down some of the activity that would have been a lot of violence. So it's catching them off guard. I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from this. I'm sure we're going to see something downrange, but this is moving in a really good direction.
Yeah, excellent. proactive and preemptive. And so far, DC's the model and it has worked. It'll be fascinating. And I'm sure some viewers are saying, well, what are the 19 cities? I should probably take it and publish it up on our website, but it's available out there if you're visiting MAGA circles. And you gentlemen named some of the cities: Miami, Chicago, probably Detroit, Los Angeles, DC, and so forth.
Philly.
What's that?
Philly, I think Philly might be one
Philly.
of them. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
on
I would
the
imagine it
list,
would be.
Yep. Philly.
And there's a common denominator, as we know. And we're not saying that someone commented to me in a public set, said, Chambers, there's bad people on the other side too. Believe me, we know that. Probably 90% of the Republicans need to go too if they already haven't been ousted. But what we are talking about here is the cleanup. The fact of the matter is those cities are chosen for a reason. And those cities just happen to be, by and large, Democrat governed cities. That's the way it is. It's not a bias. It's just a fact. But thank you, Michael. You know what we're going to do? We're going to work into the reverse here. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you since I've got you here on this next question. Second question to the panel: a world without war? And I raise that as a question. I'm 67 years old. My entire life, there's been war, multiple wars sometimes in any given moment. That's the way it's been. And it becomes just, oh, yeah, there's a war. People are dying. Well, that's crazy. So a world without war, never been again in my lifetime. So can this be the dawning of the golden age? Is this one of the beginning signs that we're heading into a different paradigm? I mean, a world without war is pretty remarkable. President Trump has ended, last count, I think, 8 wars in the past few months, including Cambodia and Thailand. And I'll just take a brief moment and comment on that because I'm just a couple of hours away from those bombs that were dropping in the country of Thailand where I am. And so I got to see local reports and such from the Bangkok News and all that, and people I know that live in the areas. And I don't have the hard stats now, and I hate to misstate them, but at one point, I think there were 17 civilians bombed and killed. There's been many more with limbs gone and so forth on both sides, Cambodia and Thailand, in terms of, these types of issues. They bombed a 7-Eleven, okay? I mean, the Cambodians did here in the country of Thailand. And of course, Donald Trump, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, or in charge of the Global Defense Alliance war, reshaping course of correction for humanity, sat them down as well. And lo and behold, the killing has stopped. And I want to mention this because this is news that's not hitting hard in America because I'm over here in Southeast Asia, but it hits hard here. There are video clips and feeds I've looked at. 7,000 Cambodian monks assembled, thanking the president, our president, and furthermore, encouraging the Nobel panel to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. But 7,000 monks. Now, monks don't typically get involved in politics, but they came at it from the sense of saving lives, which a monk would want to do. So I applaud the Cambodian monks, and I applaud both countries' leaders for stopping the killing. And so anyway, the big mess, of course, is Ukraine. So Trump has settled 7 or 8 conflicts and wars. And Ukraine is still on the table, as I understand, and I believe that'll soon resolve. So please, Mike, provide your views and insights at any and every level as to what is taking place here on the geopolitical landscape concerning wars. But first, allow me to say this just to get it out there. John Bolton, the Trump-hating, treasonous warmonger, is just the tip of the iceberg of what I see happening. So I see things changing with the European Union leaders arriving at the White House with virtually no notice, sitting before the president, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of this global events war. And there they were sitting there, kind of looked like taking orders, if you will. I didn't hear the dialogue, but it looked that way. So what's happening from that viewpoint concerning the war machine that we have lived through our entire lives and the geopolitical realignment that you see taking place? Take it away, Michael.
Yeah, see, like Ricardo was talking about, you're going to see a takedown of the deep state, and then a balancing. You're going to have the, Trump, the good guys with white hats, take charge, and they're going to stop the wars because the deep state causes all the wars. Think back to COVID. There were no wars happening during COVID. The whole world was locked down.
That
The
was
deep
the
state
war.
controlled the whole world, right? So that's going to flip now. We're going to see the exact opposite. We're going to see the good guys, higher consciousness, golden age, basically take over and flip that, completely flip that. So the deep state has no war. There's no greed and money and the psychopaths, that love to see killing and destruction. They're basically taking off the stage. They're completely gone, and that's going to be part of what we're going to see moving forward. And just like we're talking about the cities, it's like I said, it's a brilliant proactive move that President Trump does that catches everybody off guard. I never would have guessed that it would happen like that. I was like, it's going to be reactive. They're going to like crush these cities. We're going to come in and like surround them and build walls, and it's going to be like Ukraine. All the buildings are going to be blown up. But here we are, DC. People are coming up to the National Guard and the police and thanking them. It's like the first time that they've ever come back into their streets in years. There's DC police that have worked there for 20, 30 years. They've never seen, like Tom was talking about, a time where, it's week after week. It's usually every other day somebody's getting killed or more. So it's turning around. It's stunning how fast it's happening.
And great news. And also, and I know you know this, Michael, you alluded to yet some potential concerns of some trouble on the streets. And so to our audience, be vigilant and be prepared just the same. But Trump, the man of surprises, as he told us, I'm not going to tell you what my next move is when it comes to war material. Common sense, kind of, really. Same question to Colonel Chuck Sellers. We're talking about the repositioning of a world without war. How do you see this?
Well, I mean, I agree with what Mike was saying, but he again, I just feel that this thing is being very well orchestrated. It goes right back to the last show, I think, when we were talking about the when he did those airstrikes into Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That forestalled any action that would have been, really bad on the part of the Israelis during that thing. So, but I think it's all part of the same. It's all together. It's all integrated. It's all part of the same overall campaign plan. And it is all about stopping wars and letting peace emerge, So to me, it ties all together really well, I think. Just a month ago, we were talking about this stuff, and this stuff happens now. And we were talking about LA. That was well done also. And this one is unfolding. It just looks like it's all planned out and working pretty well. Now, every campaign, the best plan lasts right up until the first shot's fired, and then other things happen and you have to adjust. So that's going to happen, and I'm sure that's going to happen. But there's the guys who did the planning on this stuff know that, and so there's going to be alternate courses of action to take depending on what actions do happen. So I'm just kind of enheartened about the way it's all unfolding. So I think maybe there is a chance for peace down the line.
Unbelievable.
It's not going to be total peace, but I believe we're working in the right direction.
So encouraging to hear, especially from what we've been through in 100 years, but what we've been through in the last 10 years. The battered down soul of the average American who's just trying to live the American dream and instead living the American nightmare. A world without war, it's coming, folks. I believe that. Thank you. Same question to Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, if you want to comment on the war structures and changes that you see happening.
I want to make one comment on the National Guard and the military. I believe that I understand that what Trump actually did was he gave all of them marshal's badges. So they're not just National Guard, they're also marshals,
Which allows them to do
which
something
allows them to do
additional?
what U.S. Marshals do,
Yes.
which is take active action.
Hmm.
Good point.
Interesting.
And on the worldwide thing, I think we have to go back and look at Eisenhower's comments about the big firms, the big companies.
Mm.
The big companies are who want the war.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have war, they don't make any money. Because if I have tanks and the Russians have tanks and they're about equal, why are we going to go buy a new tank? Because the Russians have agreed they're not going to buy a new tank. So we have to look at some of that with Eisenhower going back to there. I saw something the other day where Trump has said he wants the fence painted with black paint down in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, because nobody is going to put their hands on black paint in that heat down there. That's an aside. It's a good
Interesting.
one.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
But when we look at the different countries that have had conflicts, I think about Armenia and Azerbaijan. Why are they fighting? Armenia, during the Soviet Union, was building all the electronic gear. Azerbaijan had a different role. They'd like to have, both of them would like to have the same stuff, but they fought about it instead of sitting down at the table and realizing that if they have a BRICS and everybody's dollar is worth the same amount, then they don't need to fight. They just need to trade. And that's the other piece that Trump is doing, the trade piece. People don't understand how powerful trade can be if it's an equal footing, equal area. If it's not equal, then people get really upset and they go to war because it's an economic issue. But if I have a dollar and he has a dollar and we can go in there and we can trade back and forth, there's not going to be a need for fighting because my dollar is equal to his dollar. My gold is equal to his gold. And I have gold and he has gold. And we know we both have gold. And so all of those things play in this solving the wars issue.
Mm-hmm.
Cambodia, not as wealthy as Vietnam. Vietnam is a very wealthy nation right now. Cambodia is not. So they go to war because Cambodia wants some of what Vietnam's got, or vice versa. So what happens is if my dollar and his dollar are exactly the same, we can just trade back and forth and grow both countries.
You know, it's an overused term, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox here, the term being paradigm shifting moment. But as listening to what you're saying, this truly, truly is a paradigm shifting moment. And that was some great analysis tying in the tariff aspect and the even keel playing field. We'll take the same question to Ricardo Bossi, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi. You know the subject at hand. Please weigh in if you will, and then we'll close out with our third and final question.
Sure. This moment in history is where it's an equivalent to the treaties of Westphalia, which were two treaties signed in 1648. One ended the 30 Years' War within the Holy Roman Empire, where the member states were at war with each other, based largely on religion, but other things as well. And also the 80 Years' War between the Republic of Spain and the Republic of the Dutch. And there were land claims there. So what happened as a result of these trying to end these two destructive wars, where they established what was the basis of what we now understand as state sovereignty and the foundation of the modern state system. And what we came out with after those two treaties were signed is respect for sovereignty, respect for boundaries, and the right of those member states within the Holy Roman Empire to establish alliances and pursue their own objectives. So the Holy Roman Empire and the emperor himself lost a lot of power, but what it did was it ended the wars. So it was a rules-based system between nations, and that is the basis of the nation state. Now, where we're moving to now is that's going to expand beyond just immediate application, as was started in Europe and was eventually spread throughout the planet, but again controlled by the cabal. And it's exactly right. I think Tom mentioned the corporations. That's another part. But first step is this: we're going to have, this is the post-war world, a rules-based system advancing sovereign states, but now the rules will be different because we're talking about war. Now, wars as we've seen them to date, I don't think will reoccur. There will always be acts of aggression simply because there are different nation states facing different growth trajectories. Some are vertical cliffs with a few overhangs. Others are quite gently moving up. And so you can't, just like you can't create democracy in Afghanistan for obvious reasons for anybody that's been there, you can't create a trading partner with a country that has no history or understanding of it. So we've got this very unbalanced set of nations, but they will be advancing according to a set of rules, which we will all collectively agree to, and it's sensible things, in order to obviate war, prevent the conditions for war, and allowing all the nations to grow in their own time, in their own space, in their own way. Yeah, that's that part. So there'll be a new rules-based order for the nation states to deal with each other, and there will be losers in this. France, for example, and it's still got an empire. It still has imperial controls over Africa. China is doing the same globally. China's going to have to back off a lot, get out of the Western Pacific. China's going to have to get out of Africa. They're going to be reined in. And the way that's done isn't so much with a finger in the face, because part of the rules-based setup that I'd like to see happen is, for example, there won't be trade with people who use slaves. Well, that shuts down China immediately. And so they're going to go from a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse based on slave labor and forced contracts, like from idiotic governments like the Australian government that's made us completely dependent upon them. That'll change. And all of a sudden, we'll have to keep, every nation's going to have to apply these rules and behave themselves, because there will still be acts of aggression. There will still be individuals and organizations that have to be recalibrated, let's put it nicely. And that includes corporations. Once again, we can never again allow a corporation to be more powerful than a nation state. And I've said this before, and I'm quite happy about it. We'll, if they don't behave themselves, we'll send the lads into a boardroom, grab the chairman of the board and the board of directors, and we'll throw them into a deep, dark hole. Those days are done, because that's one of the largest mechanisms by which we are stripped of our rights. And so this rules-based order, it's going to be the Treaty of Westphalia 2.0, but globally. The nature of war, the nature of war will change. We have to redefine war, because it's not just soldiers in well-pressed suits and sharp bayonets anymore, as we've seen. There's economic war, there's financial war, there's trade war, there's any number of behaviors which will now be globally, and I'm not talking UN style, so don't get me wrong, but globally, we'll put them in the doghouse if they do it. You can't do that anymore. And so collectively, everyone tells China, no, we're not trading with you. See you later on your bike. Unlike Australia, for example, where I am deeply ashamed of our people and our government and what they've allowed to do. We sell a lot of wheat and wine to China, and so we've got these vineyards and farmers out there saying, well, we don't care if the slaves, if the Chinese are harvesting organs from the Falun Gong and the Uyghurs, who are the ethnically Chinese Muslims, we're harvesting organs, vivisections basically, for on-demand organ transplants. Well, we're not going to do that, because that's against the rules, and nobody gets to trade with you. And China's going to have to grow up and understand that, they might be a great nation. They think they're a great nation, but they never had the guy nailed to a cross saying, you can't do that because we're all equal. And so this new set of rules, this rules-based relationship between all the nations where everybody gets a chance to stand up, and Africa's going to be, watch out, Africa. Man, you watch the African nations take off like rockets. So we're going to have to really be on our toes to be competitive, and do what we've got to do the right way, because this family of nations, and it'll be untidy. And this comes back to the game theory. The more internal competition we can get, that equilibrium, will be fine. Anybody tries to dominate, they're going to be shut down real quickly, because they will destabilize the whole planet. And that's what we got to look at the whole planet when we do this. We can't look at a region. There will be, like the Anglophone countries, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, for example. There's a natural grouping with a natural cultural history and understanding. And so I can see us being this group of nations being the driving force behind it. Then you've got Europe, but Europe's got so many dramas. They really need to take a few years off to the side to reestablish who the hell they are, because they have truly forgotten who they are. But a rules-based order, Westphalia 2.0, and if anybody steps outside the line, and there will always be acts of aggression, you'll never get rid of all of them. So we're still going to need the military, the police in a different form, but still has to be there. Terrorism has to be redefined, and the actions against the terrorists have to be redefined. But this is where we as a species on the planet grow up. We all have to step up, and people have to be given, different nations have to be given time to do it. That doesn't mean it comes at the cost of the developed nations, which is what the new new international economic order was designed to do. All the first world nations with strong manufacturing capability, for example, had to hand it over to China, and then we lost our capacity to manufacture. Australia's in a terrible spot. What we all have to do is, again, pursue our own economic interests and compete, as for the first time probably, in a reasonably balanced way with each other, and come up with a series of bilateral trade agreements rather than multilateral trade agreements, which are complete nonsense because everybody loses badly. So, you've got an African country with an advantage in diamonds and gold. Well, away you go. Do what you can do with your diamonds and gold. Not so much diamonds, because there's a problem there we need to address. But let's say whatever resources they have, they can take whatever advantage they can of their natural situation. Singapore, no resources, tiny island, but geostrategically critical for trade, for example. So it has its strong points too. And they're all going to have to stand on their own 2 feet. They really are. They're going to have to develop themselves. And this will take a long time, but that's okay, because when a plant grows slowly, it gets deep roots. And so as long as the soil is fertile and we give this plant to grow, then we're going to have this will be a golden age. It will take a while to get there, but it really will be, because wars as we have seen them, which Mike accurately says that the cabal made them. I mean, the history, as it's going to be coming out shortly, every war that was created for the last few hundred years at least didn't have to happen. World War I was supposed to go into the early 1920s. That was the cabal's plan. Thankfully, we had an Australian general that could actually coordinate infantry, armor, artillery, aviation into synchronized divisional and corps battles down to the minute almost, and he shut it down by 1918. It was not supposed to happen. It was supposed to drag on. The US went in 1917. The rest of us have been there since 14. The US was supposed to be there for 5 years because they could make good money out of that. So that sort of war, no. But will there be acts of violence that we need to protect ourselves against? Absolutely. Will there be acts of violence that nations will impose upon their own people, to which we will react violently? Yes. And it'll be a case of we'll finally be able to fight wars and not set the conditions for the next one. It will take time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take forbearance. It's going to take wisdom. It's going to take some pretty violent action occasionally, and a better educated public. That redefined war, redefined terror, a set of rules-based behaviors by nation states. It's going to be an extraordinary time. A lot of work. These are the great labors of peace. The tribulations of war as we have seen them are coming to an end, and the great labors of peace will now take priority. And just so we're clear on that, the foundation of that is an educated public. And we in Australia, we spent a lot of time getting people to understand from first principles what it is to be a nation state. You know, where does freedom come from? What is the origin of your sovereignty? Where are the limits of sovereignty? Where do we impose rules upon ourselves rather than having laws written? So an educated and moral people, that's the foundation that every one of these countries is going to have to get to. You know, in Hindu countries have different belief systems to Christian countries. Even Judaic rules are Babylonian in origin, and this is going to take time. And it's not our problem, for example, the West, the Western Christian nations, not our problem to solve their deficiencies or whatever shortcomings they have in their culture and their philosophy, which is holding the people back. It's their problem to solve. And we're going to help them, but it's their problem to solve. I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East, a lot of time in Southeast Asia. It's not our problem. It's their problem. They're going to have to do it, apply the rules. And if they do, we as a planet will grow. And that will genuinely become the golden age, but it's going to take a while. But that's warfare. It's very, very different, but we can do it. There's no doubt we can do it. Absent the deep state and the cabal, we'll knock this on the head. We'll be in a great place. We're going to see a lot of advances in, say, 2, 5, and 10 years. It'll be a different planet. Now, it'll continue for the next 2, 3, 4 generations without a doubt. He's got other countries that are behind the eight ball. But it's going to be an extraordinary place. And we will see sufficient joyful benefits. Is the nicest way. It's just fantastic. We're going to say, I cannot believe it. This is so much better than I ever imagined life on Earth would be. And it will be.
Wow, thank you very much. Great analysis. You unpacked a lot of stuff, and there's a theme that brought us back to what Tom Lennox talked about before, which you brought up as well, that being the power of proper trade. And a couple of other quick follow-ups. I took some notes. Juan O'Savin, I just published an interview with him yesterday, predominantly all about South Africa, which is where he is right now. And you're absolutely right about the turmoil and the change that's coming and the potential over there. And of course, China, is where they don't belong once again. And a quick comment. Yeah, the corporations you talked about getting involved, to keep war on the docket. If Derek was here, he could cite the specific executive orders, but we know the executive orders that the president put in place some years ago. Whether I don't have them at the tip of my tongue, 13818 or 13848, but one of these executive orders spoke to not only individuals and other entities, government, but corporations that may be found guilty of various different activities, including sex trafficking. He could freeze their assets, and so he's got them in check too. And so you really unpacked a lot of things there. And yeah. Okay, so we're going to take on the final and third question to the panel, and we'll start with Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi. We're going to talk about the global financial reset and the dismantling of the Federal Reserve and the IRS, making almost even mainstream headlines to some extent. When you visit the podcaster world, the good ones that know what's going on, you get a lot deeper in there. I've mentioned this before, I'll say it again. The legendary G. Edward Griffin and former Congressman and twice presidential candidate Ron Paul, both of which I had the privilege and opportunity to have worked with back in around 2010 in that space there. These gentlemen both, I know Ron Paul just turned 90. I think Mr. G is about that age as well. They must be doing cartwheels in their living rooms right now. And we thank them for their brave work. They were lone voices decades ago, calling them all out, including Greenspan and Bernanke and G. Edward Griffin's Creature of Jekyll Island, and so forth and so on. May God bless these two gentlemen, and I hope that I'm trying to get Ron Paul on a Conversations of Consequence interview. We'll see if I can pull that off with the contact that I have. But anyway, that's a setup for the final question. So let me throw a few things out there to our viewers, and it just sets the stage. President Trump, 2016, he said to us at the RNC, "I am your voice." President Trump said to us in 2016 at the inauguration, with the military behind him and all the enemies in the pit on the left-hand side, he said, "I'm giving you back your country." These weren't slogans. These were promises.
Yeah.
Promises made, these were pledges, and this is his campaign to return the country back to us. So we're on the subject of the economy. 620 plane loads of gold taken from the Vatican tunnels, quadrillions of dollars worth put it into fiat. Let's talk about reset indicators for those who don't trust the plan. Audit the Fed and Fort Knox has been raised as an issue. Both cliffhangers right now, hanging chads, if you will, but I don't think we're finished with those two subjects. Jerome Powell spent $3 billion on buildings and renovations when President Trump said you should have just spent $50 million on renovations. He paraded him around in an embarrassing setting for the world to see. He is known as too late. And of course, Trump is speaking about the lack of movement on the interest rate cycle. And I read a report that President Trump's considering suing Jerome Powell. And that's the tip of the iceberg for the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell. Then we have the IRS commissioner fired, replaced by who? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. We have President Trump fired just the other day. I read a report, a Federal Reserve governor. They have a board of governors. One woman who's in charge of was fired by Trump due to mortgage fraud allegations. We have Dan Scavino. A lot of people say, oh, he just posts memes. He posts memes as a voice for the president. And he's been with the president for over 2 decades. He's easy to follow and entertaining. Follow Dan Scavino because he just posted a couple of weeks ago 3 words: abolish the IRS. And President Trump, tariffs, he said this: tariffs working so well, we don't even need an income tax. Folks, I'm connecting the dots on those that don't believe there's a plan. And you can't give your country back to the people without giving control of the currency and the economy back to the people. So we have the talk of the return stolen wealth, which Tom Lennox spoke very, very, very well on my Global Financial Reset show. I like to visit that with the whole panel. Talk of the return of the stolen wealth, because it was all fraudulent, or much of it, back to the people, and how that might play out. And there is so much more. We have QFS, XRP. We've got the president signing certain things through actions of those specific things, stable coin, gold being used once again to back our currency per the Constitution. So that's a lot I just unloaded purposefully to stimulate all the valuable input from our panel. So we'll go with Ricardo, we'll go in reverse here, and what is happening concerning all that, and where do you speculate? And I want to just underscore this. While we have a panel of military and intelligence experts here, I believe firmly that none of us really know exactly how and when this QFS transition from where we are to where we will be will play out. But we certainly have a panel that can weigh in very expertly and get us to go down our own rabbit holes and explore this subject, because it's not conspiracy theory, it's conspiracy fact, and it's unfolding before our eyes. Ricardo, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, please take this subject on for us, if you will.
Yeah, that list of events which indicate it's already started. The trouble is, those of us who know, we know what we know, so we know. So we see the Fed go down, we know who G. Edward Griffin is, we know who Ron Paul is, we know what they've been talking about. The trouble is the great majority of people have no clue. And so when we say, you say something like the Fed's been taken down or the IRS is being abolished, most Americans don't know the IRS has no constitutional basis. So it's an unauthorized organization. So to take it down, they go, oh, okay. It's a bit like the Australians. Really? Okay. They don't get the implication of it. So we can keep, and the white hats keep rolling out these changes, and people are saying, well, I want to go, I'm looking for a sign that things have changed. Well, the white hats can keep rolling this stuff out, but they'll never get the people's attention until they zero their bank accounts for 3 days. Then you're going to get their attention. And it's not because they're silly, it's just because they're so complex, and life has been made so hard for your average Jaco and Narelle out there working 2.5 jobs, raising their kids. They trust people to do the work that they are paid to do. And they've been deceived in the worst kind of way. The trouble is, though, you can tell them about the Fed, you can tell them about the creature from Jekyll Island, all the stuff. It won't make sense. They don't know, what am I looking at? I don't understand what I'm seeing. What does it mean? And so, unfortunately, yes, all of those things can continue to roll out, and they have. There's the Basel III agreements, which the banks had to meet, otherwise they had to cease being banks, and that's happened in Australia. There's a major bank that no longer exists, but people don't know that because it's still functioning, supposedly, but it's no longer there because it couldn't meet its Basel III standards. And so the new system is in place, has been. The training for the bank people, for example, has been going on for years. The new systems, and being bankers, they just follow the new rules. They have no clue why. They're just doing it, which is great. But with all the changes, with the rollout, the when is who knows. We don't. But I'd put money. I'd bet, what is it? London to a brick is the old bet that nothing will actually happen until the bank balances are zeroed, and there's a couple of days of where's my money gone. You'll really get their attention. Yes. And then when they get their money back and they find out all of a sudden there's a very transparent system now, they have more money than they need. Dad comes home and says, well, I made $1,000 this week. How much did you get taxed? Nothing. So all of a sudden mum can stay at home, or dad can stay at home, look after the children. It doesn't matter who, I don't care who does it, but children need a parent at home all the time. That's where you raise the family. And so all of these downstream benefits of the financial reset, the transparency, the honesty, and the money in the hands of the people, because that's exactly the key element. Once the people get the money, watch them take off. Now, a couple of things will happen. One, unfortunately for most people, morality is something that they can afford. Because if it's a choice between going hungry and stealing a loaf of bread, most people steal a loaf of bread. But then and I understand that. Even the founding fathers made there is no moral requirement to starve to death. It's in their papers. It's quite interesting. But how can I say this? When they get the money, morality will improve. That's just the way it is. Comfortable people don't think about stealing stuff. Now, crooks always do, but comfortable people don't. That's point number one. Point number two, it gives them the freedom to start creating. Now, wealth creation requires three things: leadership in the form of entrepreneurs, workers in the form of labor in the form of workers, and capital. And so what the cabal has done forever has minimized our capacity to get a hold of capital, except through them. So when the capital's back in the hand of individuals, then all of a sudden you watch the United States take off. Watch the free markets take off, because all of a sudden they can say, well, you know what, every time I make a buck, I keep a buck. I like this. And so it's going to democratize the economy. And so the control by the major corporations by necessity will just fall over. And so this is the focus of the financial revolution, the reset that's about to occur. Now, when, I don't know, but as I said, I think it's going to be preceded by the zeroing of accounts, just to get the people's attention, because they're just still not paying attention. I don't know, you can literally put it in front of their face, and there's a whole bunch of legitimate reasons why they won't pay attention. I get it. But that's going to have to happen. And then transparency, control back in the hands of people very quickly. It's the low-hanging fruit. It's going to return dividends to a free people very, very quickly.
You're absolutely right. A couple of 3 days of looking at your zero balance on your statement, that'll get their attention. Can you hear me now type of thing. Very, very important point. And it looks like that may be coming soon. We'll go back in reverse on the panel and talk with Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. How would you like to weigh in on the broad subject of the reset from any angle you care to weigh in on?
Well, I like one thing about the zero balances. I actually saw something today or yesterday where Bank of America zeroed people's accounts. They were zeroed out. That probably upset a whole bunch of people, because Bank of America is very big. Mm-hmm. The big thing about the reset is understanding that people will control their own financial destiny. You're going to have no IRS, which is illegal, never been approved by the Congress of the states. You'll have no Federal Reserve to print money, because that's what they did. Is every time we got low on money, they printed some more and we borrowed it, or we sent it out on bonds. There won't be bonds going out with 6% interest rates because they won't need them. The federal governments, all of the federal governments, will be operating on gold-backed, silver-backed, or asset-backed currencies. And when we talk about all of the governments, we're talking about 209 countries. That's how many signed the GHK-Cu agreement. So when we start talking about 209 countries have signed the agreement that they will use asset-backed currency and that they will agree to operate one-to-one, we have a huge global financial reset. Now, if we look at reparations, and Trump has talked about it, and you can hear him talk about reparations to the people, you've got the two trusts, you've got the 525 or 540 quadrillion dollars worth of gold came out of the Vatican. You've got those trusts, you've got the IRS illegally collecting money from me for my life. At 80 years old, I paid a lot of taxes over the years. All of that going back to the people because the commissioner of the IRS in 1985 said the people could go in and ask for all their money back because the IRS was illegal. And there was a letter he wrote to his commissioners. That, by the way, on a side note, was found by Edward Snowden, who everybody thinks was a traitor, but actually Edward Snowden was negotiated to the Russians out of Hong Kong back whenever that thing about him being a traitor started. And he has actually been supporting the Russians in the US extensively over the years. But that's a different side story. When we start talking about the global financial reset, we're talking about all the people of the world. If you're an illegal in the United States, the way you get your reparations is going back to your home country. You can't get them in the United States. If you're an illegal in Australia, if you're an illegal in Europe, you have to go back to your home country to get reparations. So you're not going to get any money, any of the big money. And I talked about the other day that the numbers are huge, and they're based on age, and they're based on having people still continue to work. Because the critical piece is going to be, if I want to do art for my profession, I will have the money to be able to do art as my profession. Or I'll be a musician, I can be a musician. I don't have to be making a lot of money at it because I'll have sufficient funds to support my profession. So when we look at that and all the people have their own profession and what they really love to do, right now we got a lot of people doing a lot of work that they don't like. They're too smart for it, or they've never been given the opportunity to get to it. As an old military guy, I know I have a friend who was an Air Force sergeant. He couldn't understand why his parents didn't know he could go to college. He grew up in Ohio, so he went to college on his own, and he's some kind of cyber expert. Now he's retired. But when you look at that, and you look at the opportunities for people, we're going to change the education system. Half the kids can't write today. They cannot write their name in cursive because they get on a computer. Nobody's teaching them how to write. They can't do mathematics. You go into the store and you ask for change and you can't get good change because they can't count it unless that computer tells them what the change is. So if the computer's down, you can't get change. So all of those things are going to have a chance to change. And we just have to wait and see how quick it is. But I do know that QFS is operational today. Trump turned it on. Now, when all the people get that thing, that's that 3 days that
Yes.
Ricardo talked about. 3 days of zero bank account. That's when they're going to get their notification. And they will get a cell phone like this, but it won't be this cell phone. And they'll get a laptop like the one I'm talking on, but it won't be this laptop. And it will have their account in it. And nobody else can have access to that account. Even their wife can't have access to that account. They can list for a number of people to have access if something happens to them, but basically it's theirs. And they control their own money. Everybody will. Fascinating times.
It's a lot of power coming back to the people as Trump promised. I have a question, and I don't expect you, sir, to have a definitive line by line answer because it's probably somewhat the great unknown, but I think you can weigh in on it. That'll bring some value. You talked about the reparations, the money coming back to us. Sounds to me from what you've alluded to that there's going to be a very specific system. They're not going to give trillions of dollars and create a hyperinflation in the and people that never knew how to handle money, they'll cause all kinds of problems. So you're saying there'll be some sort of set of rules and deployment of those funds based on contributions to society and work and so forth and so on. Would that be accurate?
Exactly. There will be some level of rules. And the amount of money to somebody like me at 80 years of age will probably be the whole bucket they have for me. Somebody 20 years of age won't get a whole bucket.
Got it.
The reality is that everybody will be able to do what makes them feel good. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. And as I understand it, Trump's talking about all these jobs coming back to the United States. Well, all those people who are looking for some kind of a good job are going to be able to get it because it's going to be there. And I look at that as really beneficial.
Yeah.
And, it's going to happen and there'll be rules and everybody will sign an NDA when they get their bank account. That NDA is going to be good for some period of time so that they don't go out and broadcast, I got $5 million or whatever the number is. And the key thing is that breaking that NDA means that your accounts get frozen. For the countries, breaking their NDA means their accounts get frozen. It's an interesting thought.
Wow, this is fascinating dialogue, and we're curious to see how it drips out, how it plays out, and what impact it has. And something came to my mind, and that is, as listening to you, sir, the Trump saying, "I'm going to give the power back to the people." As Ricardo said, you make a buck, you earn a buck, you keep a buck, and what it does is it gives us the ability, as you said, if an artist wants to paint, he can paint, instead of having 3 jobs he hates to barely make ends meet. And so what you have here is this allows for us to be sovereign individuals. This allows us to be children of God. This allows us to exercise our innate gifts, talents, and abilities that we got from the Creator, which has been completely suppressed since day one for everyone. That is a major paradigm shifting victory in this battle between good and evil. And I think the scales have tipped and evil's getting a run for its money for the first time, certainly in my life. And so thank you for sharing all that. It's very, very insightful and important information. Same question, we'll go through the panel to Colonel Sellers, if you will, comment on this topic that we've just covered.
Yeah, I just agree totally with what Tom was just saying. And to me, the most important thing of all to get this ball rolling is the abolishment of the IRS. Just like Tom said, the IRS has always been illegal. Well, it came into being on Christmas Eve, 1913, something like that.
Yes.
And then what did they do right after that? They formed the FBI to be the enforcement arm for the IRS so they could steal your freaking money. And they've been stealing the money from us forever. So bottom line is we've all been debt slaves for over 100 years. And until that all ends, we're not going to be able to move forward. Once it ends, I think it's just like Tom was saying, we will be able to go move forward. I mean, if I had the choice, I'd be a musician. It's what I grew up with, until I went in the army and stayed in the army forever. But I think that's all of this stuff is. I'm thinking it's a good thing. We're finally seeing that maybe this stuff is going to get fixed and we'll have some justice over it.
Absolutely. You mentioned, I'll throw that out there too. We seem to have a lot of interest in the arts here. I've written about 50 songs since I'm 14, all the way until as an adult. And some of them I've run as theme songs on the shows and such. But yeah, if I could have done it all over again, had the opportunity to exercise my talents the way I chose, money was always the obstacle. I mean, how do you make a living being a musician? It's very difficult,
No,
especially
exactly.
a songwriter. I would have done the same thing. And film. I want to just real quickly, we're going to close out the same question with Michael Jaco and then closing comments and wrap this up. But I want to go Ricardo Bossi just for 1 second. And correct me, please, if I'm wrong, but I believe you stated on the other broadcast that you and I do, Bossi Briefs, every other Monday, folks, at 6 p.m. Eastern. I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put wrong information out there. You mentioned, I thought you mentioned that the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, put something out there publicly that the debt will be gone come some date in January 2026. Did I misunderstand that, or is that what you picked up and read somewhere?
January
I
1st.
can't recall that one. No, I can't recall that one. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I said that last Wednesday.
Oh, okay. I've been a little busy. I
January-
got my shows mixed
Okay.
up. Okay. So in
Just a question, didn't they? Just a question, John, just real quick. I read yesterday or today that I think since the tariffs have been in effect, they've actually collected over $500 billion in funds because of the tariffs.
and that's why that's the External Revenue Service main menu, in my opinion. And secondly, that's why Trump said what you said. We're doing so well, we don't need income tax. I mean, folks, Trump doesn't
Exactly.
say that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, he doesn't say that stuff willy-nilly. I mean, he's constantly building the narrative, as Ricardo's always predictive programming us, as well as the deep state is predictive programmed us. We're predictive programming us in a good sense. Yeah, so that's a good point. And Tom, thanks for correcting me. And sorry, Ricardo, I left you in limbo. Like, what is he talking about? I didn't say that. So you've heard a report, Tom, that Tulsi Gabbard alluded to something of the effect that in January of 2026 there won't be any debt. It's a broad statement, But if that's what she said, I mean, that's a pretty good statement from a pretty high level official in the U.S. government, wouldn't you say? I hope that plays out that
Who's been doing
way.
a good job.
Oh, she's phenomenal. Never mind all the arrests and
She
all the
said
things we
one
didn't touch on in this show. Yeah.
Yeah. She said 1 January.
Thank
That
you,
was
sir.
the quote.
Wow. Well, there you have it, folks. All right, we'll close this out in a moment. Michael, weigh in on this subject. I know you've been following gold and silver. You've been following, to some extent, the QFS. What's your view of all this stuff that you've just listened to from the panel and my long-winded question?
Yeah, I completely agree with the other three gentlemen that we're basically, it's a merit-based system that's coming in. depending on how much you've contributed to the system already up to this point, whatever point in your life, you're going to get, contributions back. And then from that point on, the contributions that you put into the system are, if you want to take a break, then everyone's going to get an income at a certain level. So I think that's coming. Now, I think the greatest thing is that we're going to stop out, and this is one of the ways we're going to stop the wars, is we're going to have complete control of the financial system, and they're not going to be able to, hijack our money. And they've been doing this for, like we talked about, all the way back in 1913. They've been hijacking our money and using it for illicit purposes for their own benefit. Imagine that completely stopped. We're talking hundreds of quadrillions of dollars that's going to come back to the people of the world. My God, that's going to be unbelievable. So that's going to contribute to a lot of things. There'll be probably free education. We'll get the med bed technology type stuff that'll come out. All of the technologies that have been restricted by the deep state will be able to flow out. That is going to contribute tremendously, to humanity and going into space, going into underneath the earth and into the seas. All these things that has been restricted from us will be open to us once this quantum financial system really kicks in. So just think about all of the things that are going to happen once this deep state apparatus is removed. It's just phenomenal. And we have so much to look forward to. I agree that it's going to take probably still generations to work through a lot of stuff, but we'll start to see, probably sounds like very, very soon, when we start seeing arrest and when we start seeing, the freezing of the old financial system, which seems to be coming very soon. We're going to see a lot of the stuff start to kick in.
Yes, great points. I want to just comment on something. We're going to close out with a closing question for everyone, and I appreciate everybody's time. It's been as always, very valuable and insightful broadcast, the Global Defense War panel, and it also gives people a chance to go research these things on their own and discover what they will discover. I think about, as listening to you, Michael, we go back to the first question, the deployment of the National Guard and the reserves and the armed forces. Not only cleaning up the streets and so forth, but there preemptively and prepared for anything that comes our way, and there will be some hiccups. We have at the same time the exportation of those that came across the border illegally by the plane load. They're cleaning them out, which will be the ones firing against us. And I'm not saying it's all cleaned out. I understand the Chinese and the mercenaries and all that, but these moves are strategically working, and so I believe it's leading to the big arrest. This is what prompted that you mentioned the big arrests. Well, we got Bolton and many others. If you're following Kash Patel and the FBI and a lot of people have been arrested and are being arrested and all of that. But the big one, we're looking for Obama. I'll call it out right out, and we're looking for Clinton. Period. End of story. Those are all roads lead to Obama, according to President Trump. That narrative has been banged pretty hard on the drums over the last couple of months. So when you have and I know those that say both of them been executed already, great. I believe they will show us that in real time, and we still get the same result. But in either case, the big arrest that will be coming, it seems to me that the stage has been set. They're bringing the illegals that will fight us out. The military's, the country's welcoming and thanking them for being on the streets, except the lunatics, which are now self-exposed. And so all this is leading to, in my opinion, and putting dates out there is a disaster for reputation. But I will say, in my humble opinion, just as a guess, I see this playing out before Christmas of this year, the big arrests, and we're ready to handle the danger, the EBS, the bank account zero, all this stuff seems to be culminating to a head sometime, in my best estimation. I'm just a layman, between October and December. What's your view on that, Michael? And anyone else can comment as I take us through the closing.
Yeah, I think the September-October timeframe is going to be pretty pivotal. Now, on the other side of that, we're military men, and we have the knowledge that when you push on the enemy, they often have plans to push back on you very hard. So we have to be aware that they have obviously some very high technology weaponry that they've been using against us for quite some time. The directed energy weapons, the HARP system, they can actually make earthquakes. There's so many different things, hurricanes, all of the different things that they have been just throwing at humanity. They haven't been as successful, I don't think, more recently, but they always have something up their sleeve, and we have to be very cautious of that. Yes, we're moving into a golden age. Yes, we're going to have all these different technologies that are going to start to come out. Yes, we're going to have quantum financial system. It's going to be magnificent. But whenever there's a shift in consciousness, you go throughout history, thousands of years back, there's always trauma. So we're going to probably see trauma, and I hope it's mitigated to a great extent by the great plans that seems to be unfolding from the Trump administration, and probably is going to move into other countries as well. They'll start to do their work that's planned on their behalf, their country's behalf. But yeah, we have to really be cognizant that these guys, and I feel very strongly about this, they're gonna whip something out that's really gonna shock humanity. But we have to stay focused. We have to keep moving forward and not let it shake us. We're military guys, we're used to combat and getting shaken, and through our training, through our actual maybe combat experiences, like I think all of us have, it doesn't phase us. But for most of humanity, it's going to be it could possibly be quite a shocker. So we want this to be a great experience. We've been talking about great experiences coming. They will happen, but there is that possibility. Hopefully, outside chance, but I'm just going to say I don't think so. That we're going to have some type of very major situation, and I think it's around that September-October timeframe, and the end of September. So I think that Christmas could be kind of not so good. So I hope it's good, but I've looked at it from intuitive, and it seems like there's some sadness in that time frame. But on the other side of that, going forward, there could be tremendous relief, tremendous release of all the stuff that the deep state, and it could be like that. This the last thing that everybody says. That's it. That's enough. We're taking this evil down, and we're never going to have anything to do with it again. It could be something like that, because Ricardo's talked about that. You have to have some kind of balance. You're going to have the evil. You're going to have the good, and at some point they have to balance out. And the evil's had a lot of run. We need some good, but I think they might have one little last push. So just want everybody to be aware of that.
Thank you. Thanks for your advice for everyone and your closing comments. Michael, what's the best way for people to follow your work, your podcast, and the things that you're doing? Share that. They know already, but there's a lot of new people joining us. Let the folks know where to find you.
Thank you very much. MichaelKJaco.com. And I got all my stuff over there. Find everything I do there. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you for your valuable insights to this panel. We'll close out with everybody else. So I'm just looking at the screen. We'll go to Colonel Sellers. Closing comments, or anything you want to close your view out with here, and the best way for people to follow you if there is such a platform.
Yeah, just real simple. I just think I believe, based on the things that have been happening recently with what President Trump's been doing and this and that, I think things are trending in a good direction. I feel good that we're heading in the right way. But just like Mike just said, you got to keep your head on a swivel. Remember that things can turn upside down if you're not paying attention. And I think we all need to just concentrate on keeping our eyes open and doing the right thing. Always do the right thing if you can. In other words, Don't take the easy way out. Do the right thing and pay attention to what's going on, because there's going to be more stuff that happens. Just like what happened in Kerrville, Texas, in the Hill Country, just with the floods just recently. President Trump put a committee together to study whether HARP was involved in that. And there was a HARP ship off the coast of Texas when that flood happened, killed 143 people. I thought that was encouraging to hear that he put a committee together to study that specific scenario. So anyway, I just think even though we're all going in a good direction, you just got to keep your heads, stay alert, stay alive, stay alert, stay awake, stay alive.
Excellent. Well, thank you. As I recall, sir, you don't necessarily have a platform for people to visit, or do you at this time?
No, I don't, but it's
Okay.
charles.sellers87@gmail.com.
Great. Well, okay, so you can reach the colonel there, and I know you're probably a guest on other platforms as well, so public can gain access to you there, and certainly every month here that you join us, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you, sir. Same question to Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, closing out. Any closing comments and advice to the people listening to the broadcast?
I agree with Mike, and I even agree that it's probably the end of September, because there's a big day, 22 September, from a religious standpoint, that this could be right around that day. I can't remember the name of the title of the name, but I think it's called the Trumpet or the Trumpets. That would be a time that I would suspect they would try to do something right around there.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has to stay alert. Those of us who are ex-military, probably like the good colonel has there, has a weapon or two or three. You should have sufficient ammunition for it. You never know what's going to happen.
That's what Dan Bongino said. He said they're going to come at your door. They're not just against your political views. We're their enemy, and to be prepared. So you're raising the same point.
And keep at least one that's not locked up in the gun safe.
Right.
Well said.
All the other stuff.
Yep.
I see Mike shaking his head.
Some reason I have a feeling this panel is well prepared, and you're giving great advice to those of us to prepare, and we appreciate that.
And but I do think it's going to happen, that we're going to have the Great Reset. We're going to have what my wife calls abundance for all the people.
Yep.
When? I don't know. Some people say it's going to happen on a Thursday. What Thursday? Nobody knows. But
I hear you. Well, we look forward to that Thursday. Well, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, for your advice and closing statements and contributions to the panel. We'll close out where we started with Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, closing statements, comments, and advice to the people. Oh, your mic is muted, sir. There you go.
No, we're good. We're good. No, I was just smiling. To your point about making sure you've got your everyday carry within arm's reach, I remind my daughters that everything's a weapon, even a pencil.
Yeah. True.
So yeah, right there with you. Closing comments. It's once again, we are exactly where we need to be, and I'm reminded of the story of Nehemiah, who was the biblical character that helped rebuild Jerusalem after, in I think 500 BC, somewhere around that time, after it was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. And they didn't have time to build the city walls. And so what he said to them, for those of you who know the story, he said to everybody, build your own wall in front of your own house. And by the time we've all got walls around our house, we've got the city walls in place, so to speak. That's exactly where we are now. Every one of us needs to do what we can to prepare ourselves. I get a lot of questions saying, what do we do about the chemtrails? What do we do about this? What do we do? The answer is nothing. Let it go, not your job. Your job is to get ready for what's coming next. So you got to withstand the storm that is coming without a doubt. And I think it'll be done certainly before Christmas, because just that statement I didn't know about Tulsi Gabbard and the 1 January statement. If I was sequencing something as big as no debt, I'd use that as a relief from the tension that has just come. So there's tension and resolution, and you've got to have the resolution after the tension. So if that's happening 1 Jan, then I'll be saying it's going to go down before Christmas.
Happy New Year.
But having said that, yeah, New Year. So what we've got to do is just prepare yourself. Spend your time physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. Get yourself in order, because it's on our shoulders, all of us listening to this right now. People will turn to us and say, help me. And we have to turn around and go, hardly a challenge, we're ready to go. So we get ourselves ready, we get our families ready. Literally, it's just hunker down, get yourselves organized, build that wall in front of your own home, metaphorically, then start working. And Mike Flynn's been saying this for a long time, General Mike Flynn. Your neighbors, your suburb, your community, start building that together. But that can't build until all of us are strong in and of ourselves. So that's the only thing I'd say. Get yourselves ready as much as you can. If you haven't been going to the gym as often as you should, go. There's nothing like picking up heavy bits of metal to remember that you're a weak bastard and you've got to do this regularly. Eat right, sleep right, do what you can, be positive, look on the upside, be hopeful, and we'll get through this. We're okay. We are so close now, and we've been so close, and we're getting closer. We're on the cusp. We're on the cusp. It's like when you go surfing and you're sitting there and you're waiting and you feel the water rise. And you can't, the wave's not there yet, but you can feel yourself rising. You know it's about to come and it's about to break. And then you paddle and catch that wave. That's where we are. So make sure you're fit, you're in the right place. As I said, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Catch that wave in and drag as many as you can with you. That's it. And you can catch me at www. You've got to put the W's in, australiaoneparty.com. And you can go to our Rumble channel. There are, oh God, I don't know, in excess of 500 interviews going back a few years at least. And some are short, but mostly around in the long form. And there's a lot of good information there for those who want to catch up with what's going on in Oz, who we are and what we're doing. So thanks, Michael. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Great inspiration and great closing comments. And I'll say this, the people of Australia support Australia One, get behind this man and make Australia great again. MAGA has two meanings. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And those are wondering, who's Sandy? I'm sure our audience is going, what's up with Sandy? Again, folks, coming back to the beginning, our producer, sadly, and condolences to the family, had a death in the family. And so she was unable to produce our show. We did the Zoom to get the content out there. And Sandy's one of the backup, not technical, but producers and schedulers that coordinates and makes these shows happen. And thank you, Sandy, for sticking here just in case I ran into some trouble. So what I'd like to do right now, since I don't have the bells and whistles of production, I'll ask our esteemed panel to sign yourselves off. I thank you and salute you. God bless you. And we'll see you next month. Thank you so much for your time. The people need to hear from you. Thank you very much.